he played for 3 different NHL teams, Blake.
Mm-hmm.
The Vancouver Canucks, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. And we had a couple listeners say, hey, Frankie, he's got the Leafs jersey in the back of his setup. Where's all the Canucks gear?
There's the Canucks.
And he joins us now in full Canucks regalia.
How come you don't have any advertising on that helmet, Frank?
There's no ads. This is pre-advertising, but yeah, I figured I'd bring it back for one last go. If you'll notice, my chin strap is undone because a lot of times I would just take warm up, so my chin strap actually never got done up for the entire night.
Is that
helmet went on, helmet went off, and no chin strap was done up.
That's fine.
Is that a team issue?
He doesn't have his ears in. Wait till he gets his ears back in.
Is that a team issue Canucks zip up that I'm seeing? Like, is that something? Okay.
Yeah. Hold on a sec. This is not only team issued. This is playoff. It was a playoff specific one.
Oh,
yeah. This is playoff specific. So
apropos timing here.
Sweaters done up. Yeah.
Which brings me to my first question. Your rookie season in the National Hockey League, you play 4 playoff games for the Vancouver Canucks. What's it like to be on the ice as a playoff performer in front of this audience, this market at Rogers Arena?
It was crazy. I still can remember stepping onto the ice for the first time, feeling those goosebumps, feeling the energy in the building. I'm pretty sure they had the towels, like there were the white towels going. If I remember correctly, it was one of the coolest moments that I'll ever, experience in my hockey career. And unfortunately, we weren't even able to win a game in that entire series. So, it little bit of a sour note in that regard, but just the culmination of kind of getting to that point in your career and being able to experience the NHL playoffs it's a privilege, and you never know when it's going to come around again. And for me, it never did come back around, but very grateful that I got to experience those forms and cherish those memories very fondly.
It's true though, when it happens at a young age, you don't know what lies ahead, do you? You probably consider that it's going to happen at least every other year, if not every year, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, especially when you're young, you're like, okay, I'm going to play, hopefully, a long time in the league, and you're going to play a team, and it's just you just don't know. You don't know what the circumstances are going to be. Like, you take a look. There's some players like Jeff Skinner's played 1,000 games. He's never played in a playoff game, which it's a crazy stat. But there's a few guys like that it's taken them a long time to play in the playoffs, and this group has an opportunity, a well-earned opportunity, and I think that's always going to be part of the messaging whenever a team embarks on their playoff season. Right before game 1 and the pre-scout meetings, it's like everyone's going to keep that in mind as they start things here.
That team you played on was, in fact, the last division winner for the Vancouver Canucks until last night.
Was that the
Northwest
division back then?
Yeah. Yes, this is the first time they've won the Pacific division. It was Northwest back then.
Yeah.
Does it mean anything to you? Does winning the regular season division title mean anything to a team?
Well, okay, so I only played 3 regular season games with the team, so I can't, like, I wasn't a part of the bulk of that season, so I can't speak to the journey that those players went on. And keep in mind, it was the lockout shortened year, so different than an 82 game grind. When I played in Utica, we won the division my second year, the year that we won Calder Cup Finals, and there is a sense of pride in doing something like that. Like, it's a long year. There's ups and downs. There's such a grind to it. I think it really is a testament to the group and the resilience and the perseverance that you are able to put together a season like that and emerge victorious among your peers. So listen, it's not the big one. It's not the be all and end all, but it is a nice little accomplishment. And if anything, it's kind of one of those things where if things do end up going south, or you don't think your game is in a good spot, or you're down, it's like you kind of remember, hey, we're good. Like, we won the division. We are a good team this year, and we should remember that with the way that we played. And it's not a cocky thing. It's more of just an assurance that you've done the right things all season long, and you deserve to be where you are.
Should the conference be meaningful to the Canucks this year? I mean, it's not in their hands. They need a Dallas regulation loss, but is that something they should aspire to Thursday if the opportunity presents itself?
Sure. I mean, I don't think it's not something that you're necessarily playing for at this point. If that's something that happens, I think that just goes back to the same mindset as far as winning the division. But they are where they are as far as their playoff matchup. There's nothing's going to change there. I think it's just, do you want to add another title or a banner or whatever the case may be? Like, I think the winning the division is more important than, in this case anyway, saying you're the Western Conference champions. Like, that's not going to change what the outlook is, what the playoff picture is. They're still atop their division, and that's, it's a nice accomplishment for the team.
The difficulty here is that if Dallas loses and the Canucks have a chance to win that conference, it takes them out of the Nashville Predators sweepstakes, if you will, to face them in the first round. As we heard from Brian Burke, we've heard from others as well. Teams in their heart of hearts do pick a favorite of who they'd like to face in the first round. If we are to assume that they are like a lot of people and want the Nashville Predators, what does tomorrow night's game look like for the Vancouver Canucks, knowing that, there's a scenario in which if they win, they don't get to face the Nashville Predators?
I know. And you know what? So, like, you look at the options, like Vegas and LA, both have like games against, inferior opponents, if you want to call it that. I'm kind of operating under the premise that both those teams are going to win. So nothing is going to really change there as far as Edmonton playing Vegas and, the Vancouver Canucks, I guess the Dallas Stars would be playing the LA Kings at that point, right? Am I right there?
Yep, that's right.
So if you look back at Nashville's schedule over the last little while, it seems daunting because they've won a lot of games and they've been playing really well. They haven't beat a lot of playoff teams recently. Like, they have really mastered their schedule. And they beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, which is what you're supposed to do for sure. But I hear a lot of chatter about, if there was going to be one upset in the first round, like, who would it be and who's a prime candidate? And because Nashville's playing so well and the Vancouver Canucks are kind of new on the block, like, maybe that's the one that really sticks out. That's in Vancouver's control. They're, the narrative is not in their control, but how they play in that series is absolutely going to be. And with Thatcher Demko coming back and putting together a performance last night, it's like, as much as they're playing well and you're new on the block, you're the division champs. You were the best team in the Pacific. You had a number of great stories in. You're probably going to have the Norris Trophy winning defenseman. Like, all these things have worked in Vancouver's favor all season long. And, Nashville, like I said, like, they haven't exactly beaten a bunch of world beaters here recently. They've won the games they're supposed to win, and that's great, but it hasn't been a super strong schedule for them the last little while.
4-3-1 against playoff teams is Nashville since the start of March. So yes, very mediocre, and you're quite right. All the wins, or many of the wins in that stretch, are up against playoff also rants. Forget where I was going here. I had a follow-up question.
Do you want to talk about last night? Let's just dig a little bit deeper. You mentioned the performance by Thatcher Demko. Is it done? Should you just walk away and be like, it's no worries about Thatcher Demko. He is back. He's ready for game number 1. Was that enough to calm any worries for a Canuck fan?
I mean, I would hope so. He had to face 40 shots last night. Like, I would hope that's enough to say that the guy is ready to go. And with one more game remaining, I guess do you kind of say, okay, do we want to give him that second one before the playoff starts, or do we want to value a little rest? And other players have kind of spoke to this as well. And sometimes it's not the first game back that gets you, because you are playing on a little bit of an adrenaline. It is more like, how do you react game 2? How does your body feel game 2? How does your body recover? I think that's maybe what the dialogue would be, Thatcher Demko. But like, from what I saw, I'd be fully prepared to say, good for the regular season. Let's fire it up come playoff time. And I don't know when the Canucks are going to be scheduled to start their series. if they're going to go Saturday or if they're not going to go Saturday. But that's probably going to play part of the equation. Well, like if it's a little bit of a delayed start because they're not going Saturday, then maybe you consider giving him one more game so it's not that long of a layoff after the one game back.
So talk to me from a player's perspective. You play in Winnipeg on Thursday. You are going to fly home and arrive in the early morning hours of Friday. Ideally, when would you want your playoff series to start, Frank?
Okay, so you're flying home, and then you keep in mind because you're going to Vancouver, you actually gain an hour, which was always nice when we came back from Alberta. And I never went back from Manitoba to Vancouver. It was always we'd start a road trip and seemingly go a bunch of other places for 2 weeks. So you'll come back, and then I would imagine you probably want a day off. You probably want at least one practice day. You probably wouldn't hate 2 practice days, and then you're back into your series. So what is that? That would be
That's Monday.
That's Monday. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's Monday. So there you go. Like I think that would be perfect. It's not too long. It gives you a day of rest. It gives you a day to kind of sharpen things up mentally. Another day to kind of have a practice where maybe you zone in on a couple of the objectives of what you're going to be doing in that series, and then it's go time. So that I don't think you need too much practice. I don't think you need too much time off, but you also don't want to just like jump right into it for the first round of the playoffs. You go deep into the playoffs and the schedule starts getting tight. Of course, you're going to have to do it. Like you play, you win, day off, start the next series. Like that's the reality. A lot of teams are going to be up against that in the playoffs, but for round one, it's like it's nice to kind of just have that little buffer zone between the regular season and the playoffs.
Remember what I was going to ask you earlier. If the Canucks have nothing to play for Thursday, if Dallas takes care of the conference here on Wednesday, would you leave Quinn Hughes at home? Would you rest anybody?
Now, yes, I would. Absolutely. This is the topic of conversation where I live, and it's making me nauseous just hearing about this all the time because Matthews is chasing 70 and the talk, well, do you rest him? Do you play him? Obviously play him. He's chasing 70 goals and he's also not banged up. Like he's not hurt. So what's the purpose in resting a guy like that? Because realistically, he could get hurt in game 82. He could get hurt in game 5, 55, 40, like you name it. Anyways, with Vancouver, I think it's a totally different scenario. All the individuals have kind of accomplished what they're to accomplish. The division has been set. So with that being said, your purpose is there's no purpose in that game. So why do you need to play those guys? It would be a good idea to give guys a little bit of rest. And it's actually like it's been done in the past in Vancouver. I remember the year that I played in the playoffs. We came in Edmonton where both the Twins played one shift so they could keep their Ironman streak alive. I don't think Burrows played. I don't think Bieksa played. Like I think they played guys like me and Jocelyn and Tommy Sestito played that night. Like there was a little bit of like, hey, there's a couple of the Black Aces that are going to be here, played some games, a couple of the extra guys. There's just what would be the point in rolling out all your guys that your season kind of relies on in a meaningless game. So there would be a significant purpose in not playing a guy like Quinn Hughes in that game.
The only thing for Hughes is just keeping him ahead of McCarr in the points race for optics. But I mean, that's pretty loose and nebulous too. Like, what does it even really mean? We don't know.
I guess you could say that, but if you're worried about the Norris, like I don't think that is going to change the Norris in itself. I think, I think you're right though. I think, to look back at it and grab the NHL stats page and say number 1 Hughes, number 2 McCarr, sure. But when it comes to awards and the ballots, like I think people have their mind made up by now.
Yeah, well, we were hoping for Quinn Hughes to put a couple of points up Tuesday. Alas, he did not. Yeah. So, who knows? McCarr may still leapfrog him amongst the defensemen scoring for the defense scoring lead. Incidentally, when he said Jocelyn, do you know who he's referring to?
No.
I had to look it up.
No, I had no idea.
Derek Jocelyn, defenseman.
Yeah. Jocelyn, yes, right, yes.
Played
why I know
games
that?
for the Canucks. That's it.
You know why that literally came up today? Because
he's your part of town, is he not?
Yeah, he's from here. But I remember the reason why that came up is because last night I was in Montreal calling the Habs versus the Red Wings. Slavkovsky scored the 4-3 goal, and that triggered a $250,000 performance bonus for him. And I saw a little discourse on Twitter today. I think it was Cam Robinson and Mike John. And apparently Quinton Byfield has an opportunity to trigger 2 of his performance bonuses with his next goal and his next assist or next point. And, the tweet was laid out to Mike Johnson. He's like, I would be going as hard as I possibly can for that. And I remembered that game. I believe it was a 7-2 against the Edmonton Oilers at the end of April. And Justin Schultz had a goal and 3 assists. Yakupov had a hat trick, and those guys were going nuts celebrating. And we didn't realize it until afterwards on the bench that those guys all hit performance bonuses in that last game of the year. I guess it was game 48 that locked year. So they all hit it with like massive performances against our bare bones team. And Roberto Luongo was in net that night, and Joe Canada was backing him up. Joe had just been kind of called up from, I think, the Chicago Wolves, or just finished college. Like, he might have just finished at Merrimack. And our good pal Jason Botchford, I remember the next day, was on TSN, and was his thing called was it called Stud or Dud? That his segment that he used to do with Gino. And I think the dud was keeping Bobby Lou in net that night and not putting Joe Canada in a Laws game where you're losing a bunch already. Like, just give the guy an NHL start to say he got one. And I don't know if Joe Canada ever got an NHL start after that.
So you're okay with stat chasing then? Like, the Leafs have the goalie out with down 3 goals, looking for Matthews 70th. There's talk Sydney may play with Malkin tonight because he's 3 goals shy of
Malkin needs a hat trick.
500, although this could well be the last time they ever played again. So it might be a little bit more sentimental than just stat chasing. You're okay with that in these final games, especially if there's nothing at stake?
Yeah, of course I am. Like, this stat chasing is better than, a stat disling, like healthy scratching Mike Modano in game 1499. I think that's way more silly than putting guys together on the same line or giving them opportunities to chase these milestones. Guys work, like, you got to keep in mind, like, for the coaching staff, guys work really hard for you all season long. They give all they got. So, if you have an opportunity to kind of repay them in this kind of way and give them an opportunity to achieve something, I think it's okay. Like, I don't have an issue with that. I think it's a nice little reward for guys.
Well, the other thing is, guys, the East is completely set in particular. So all the Eastern games, people are paying money to go to those games. If you're just trying to, grind down the clock, like, that's not much of a show. Like, you go out and do whatever you want to do. Is people are paying to be there.
Hey, Eastern Conference observers got their show last night, and I was texting with Frank. And sorry, Frank, I didn't realize you were calling the final seconds.
I thought you were watching.
So I'm watching Washington, Philadelphia, and the Philadelphia commentators are updating the Detroit Montreal game.
Right.
And they say it's 4-3 Montreal with 7 seconds left. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, forget about that. Bye-bye Detroit. And then they break in solemnly to declare Detroit has scored with 3 seconds left. It's now 4-4. And it's going to overtime.
Lucas Raymond, man.
So I texted Frank, whoa. And he came back with, are you watching this? And I'm like, well, I'm watching Philadelphia, Washington. And it sounds like the Flyers commentators just had their dog die or something like that.
Man.
Just how depressed they were. They were also wondering about whether there was a blown icing call that set up that Detroit tying goal. But everything was happening there towards the end of the Flyers Capitals game and with the Red Wings engaged in Montreal.
Well, it was the timing of everything that really put a nail in the coffin for Philadelphia and Detroit. So Jake Evans goes to clear the puck, and it goes down the ice, and the officials or the linesman calls it icing. Now, that puck had hit a Detroit Red Wings player's stick. The linesmen and referees congregated, and then they ultimately decided to bring that puck to center ice and do the face-off there. So what does that take? A couple minutes, let's say. Now, when Perron scores the goal to tie things up with 3.3 seconds left, that message did not get to Philadelphia and John Tortorella fast enough to ultimately prevent him from pulling the goaltender. So you think, oh, maybe if that icing situation didn't happen. But I would also say, if that was a free-flowing kind of situation and we didn't get that whistle, the Perron goal probably doesn't even happen.
That's right.
So, right, like that changes the flow of the game as well. The clock could have just been killed and that would have been it. It would have been over. But we were calling that game. We went nuts. We went nuts on our call. Kenny Daniels and Mickey Redmond were in the booth just over from us for Bally's Red Wings broadcast. Going nuts. And, and then so as we got the information, my play-by-play guy, Brian Mudryk, looks at me and says, well, like, would the players on the bench know that just happened for Detroit? Like, they're about to start overtime right now. And I said, well, the video coach would have told the head coach or the assistant coach. I'm not sure, like, they would have conveyed that to the bench in that moment. But after the Kane shootout winner, you see the really subdued kind of reaction. And it's like, yeah, they were conveyed that message ultimately. And it was pretty somber as they were heading off the ice.
No, you're quite right. And the Flyers announcers were saying, well, they don't know clearly with the way they're managing that. And Montreal, Detroit, the last couple of nights, Frankie, just
Detroit period.
Extraordinary.
3 straight last second results for the Detroit Red Wings. 3 straight.
Honestly, that's the best of the stretch run in NHL action that you want to see right now.
And they miss it. And
right
they
miss all the way.
But they deserve to miss it. Like they really do. Like they lost a row. They couldn't put together a good stretch of hockey with Dylan Larkin out. Like I went back last night. I was doing my notes. Like after 25 games, they had a .640 winning percentage. As of February 28th, the Red Wings were 8 points up on the in the wild card race, like 8 points into the playoffs. It was like a big time collapse by them. So they should never have been in a situation where they were trying to
91 points. You shouldn't make the playoffs at 91 points.
No. Hey, last question here. Just getting back to the Canucks. Tyler Myers says a 2-point night. He's one shy of 30. He has been the third most used defenseman for the Vancouver Canucks. And of course, you've got all the uncertainty about Philip Hronek. How much you want Myers back if you're the Canucks for next season?
I do, because you know what? Another team is going to covet him just because of like the way things are going now, where guys that are like big, rangy, like they're highly sought after guys. Like we've seen it the last couple of years come free agency. And the thing about Tyler Myers is the team is better around him. The team is more structured around him. They've deployed him in a way that's more suitable to his game, like not making him take on too much. So with all that being said, like I would love to have Tyler Myers back. And, it kind of goes back to the Hronek conversation as far as if you have that player, well, who are you bringing in that makes you better? I think that the Tyler Myers thing is also appropriate, because if you don't have Tyler Myers, are you bringing in just an average guy? And so if you're going to bring in an average guy, I'll take the average quote unquote guy who's 6'7" and has that element as well, because it is hard to come by. So the fact that he's playing as well as he is really good for Vancouver. And I know Blake Price is a bit of a fan right now as well, judging by his tweet last night.
Term and money matters. Term and money matters.
Yeah.
But I'd have him back.
No, but we've had this conversation all year long. And of course, I think the fans have been slower to this than others, because he was a whipping boy for many years here. Right. But he has had a good, solid season. It is clear that Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote trust him, given the ice time that he has played. And he's played with a number of different partners over the course of the season and has looked pretty good in that role too, which can be difficult, I know, Frank, because Hughes and Hronek have been such a constant that it's been Myers who, through injury, attrition, deployment, has played with a bunch of guys. So
and that's
it's a weak right-handed free agent defense market, as it always is. And of course, as you know, Frank, like if you're going to trade for one of these guys, you're giving up a ton.
Exactly. And you know what? The fact that, like in a pinch, you put him in a situation, it's like there's a certain amount of, time on where you can be put in that situation and play well. Maybe it's not a you're in all the time, but like you said, like Hronek goes down or something happens, like he's a good guy to slide into that situation. It's not going to be a permanent thing, but at least you get some good reps, you get some good games, and that kind of buys you time until your kind of premier guys, let's say, are able to come back.
Hey everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here,
then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.